He left the office like clockwork, keys cold in his hand, phone face down on the passenger seat. Every night the digital clock blinked 2:17 a.m., as if the world held its breath the same second he put the car into drive. The city thinned into dark highway and the same stretch of road opened like a repeat of an old film. The lone streetlight, the bend where the trees hunched close, the guardrail that gleamed wet, sometimes with fog. One night, just past the bend, he saw a pale shape under the light, a man so white he looked carved from moonlight. The man stood next to the road with a cardboard sign in slow, shaky letters. "I died here." The businessman slowed. Instincts split between fear and the habit of politeness, trained by a lifetime of safe choices. He told himself it was an urban myth given flesh, a drunk waiting for a ride. He kept his hands on the wheel, eyes on the sign, heart punching the inside of his chest, and drove past. The man did not move. The sign held its claim against the night like a verdict. The next night, the same time, the same road opened again. He had meant to drive a different route, but had fallen back into the routine he didn't realize was a chain. Halfway through the bend, a cold hand touched the back of his seat. He startled and turned his head. There, lean and impossibly still, the pale man sat in the back like he had always been there. No smell, no wet clothes, just a small rise and fall of breath. The businessman spoke, and the sound in the car felt loud and wrong. The man did not answer at first. His eyes were hollow with a calm that did not belong to living men. Then, quiet as a thought, he leaned forward and whispered one phrase. Two words that slid into the air and under the dashboard. Switch lanes. A second later, headlights, bright, sudden, out of nowhere, cut across the road. A drunk driver, drunk and wide-eyed, swerved into the businessman's lane with a howl of metal. He moved the wheel because the whisper reached him before the accident did. The other car clipped the guardrail. Life and death separated by inches. The businessman's hands trembled, sweat beading where his breath fogged the glass. He drove on with the pale weight behind him, the whisper still warm in his ears. Morning came with coffee that tasted like paper and a headline that felt like a punch. He read about a driver, unnamed in the first lines, found at the bend, dead at 2:17 a.m. The photograph showed the crumpled hood, the skid marks, the bent guardrail. The report said the victim was a local man on his way home. There were no witnesses who stopped. The businessman's stomach turned as the map of the accident matched the map in his head. The same light, the same sign, the same second. He replayed the night like footage, and a realization slid across his chest, cold and small. He had been warned, not haunted. Someone, or something, had sat behind him and steered him away from death that belonged instead to another. Survival, he understood with the slow horror of a man learning a cost he had not asked to pay, might mean someone else filled the empty space he left behind. The idea lodged in his mouth like a bitter pill. Someone had died where he might have died, and because he drove on, but death stayed someone else's. That night, he could not bring himself to take the usual road. He took a long detour, the city's lights trailing like small consolations, but sleep would not come. The next night, he forced himself back to the bend, as if to prove the world still obeyed rules. Under the same weak light, the pale man stood again, cardboard in hand, but the letters were different now. Thank you. The businessman stopped. The man did not ask for anything. He only looked at him with the same slow, tired calm and nodded once, like a man who had finished a job. In the morning, there was another headline, a different name, a different life, and a photograph that showed a face the businessman would never meet. He drove from then on with a quiet that felt like debt. Sometimes, in heavy traffic or at red lights, he imagined the back seat empty and full at once. He never learned who the pale man had been, or why he chose to warn some and not others. He only knew the road would always be the same at 2:17 a.m., and that survival tasted of someone else's last breath.